he's like, I'll never find someone. My mom said I will never find someone and all that stuff. And it's like, he trauma dumped on me. It's everyone's all girls, it's all women. And they're projecting. So I try to help people who want to help themselves. And the company I was working for didn't really care about that. So I started to just think about like, wow, this like, I wonder if part of this love industry is a scam.
Today's guest is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to matters of the heart. Vivian has worked in nearly every corner of the love industry, from behind-the-scenes matchmaking magic to frontline camera on the wedding day. She's helped countless people go from swiping aimlessly to finding real, lasting love. And today, she's here to pull back the curtain and reveal the hidden pitfalls in modern dating and what you can do to improve your odds.
You don't want the only person checking the reality of you to just be you. Cold cards are people who the average commitment year before an engagement is now. The average age you get married is like now. If you want to find a quality person, you have to.
So overall, what would you say? Dating apps, good or bad?
Dating fatigue is such a real thing.
In your own words, what is emotional intelligence?
Well, if you want to put as simple as possible, is if you want to improve your odds, then you need.
Welcome, Vivian.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
What did you say was the most difficult thing as a matchmaker?
I had a client who told me, I'm a liberal guy. I want to look for a liberal woman. I want to be with someone who is open-minded like me. So I started to just, ask him like, okay, like I'll find you someone who has similar interests with you, but is there something you would like to tell me? And they're like, no. And that's where I'm like, okay, I guess I have to trust with what I have if they're not willing to open up some things with me. And of course, I get feedback from the people they're on a date with, right? So I hear this story about how like he apparently flipped out and cried and like started calling her names. Eventually, like she left because she was really upset. And then that's when she told me everything, and she's like, you better do like better screening or something like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And this is like my very, very beginning, right?
Yeah.
Because I was just like, how do I approach this? I finally talked to my client. It's like, hey, so I heard something happen, but let's talk about it. And he's like, she told me that she doesn't think we're working out, and it's because I'm not good enough, and like that's the thing. Like she's the one that sucks, and she's the one. It's like as if he's the victim of everything, and that she's the problem to blame or whatever. And he didn't handle the rejection very well, and he's like, I'll never find someone. My mom said I will never find someone, and all that stuff. And it's like he trauma dumped on me. That's when I was like, so I think this is time, maybe, like, would you ever consider professional help? Because I know you want to find someone, but at the same time, like, you're saying this is a reoccurring thing. And they're like, no, it's everyone's all girls, it's all women. And he's projecting his childhood issue with his mom onto this poor girl who, like, is sitting there like, I'm just being honest and telling you I don't think this is going to work out, And that's valid, right? But handling the rejection, oh boy, like I would say my not that my worst clients, my most difficult clients are people who don't handle rejection so well. I try to tell them like, hey, maybe you should take a break from dating and maybe reevaluate to see if this is like this is something you're ready for, if you need to help yourself a little more, And more than half the time they're like, no, right? And then the small amount of clients are like, you know what, you are right, because I think I'm going to go back to therapy, and I've been dealing with some issues, and I don't want to hurt people I love, that I want to love.
Hurt people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's hard to think about, that to think that you're some type of monster, and then you like somehow that reminds you of someone in your childhood that told you that. And I've been through that before too, right? So of course I sympathize heavily with the guy being told he's a monster and stuff like that. Like my parents were projecting their issues onto me, and I started projecting onto people. And I was like, I want to help people that went through that, But then that's when I came to a conclusion, like, it takes the willingness to change. And how do we fix that? How do we make a difference in that?
I'd love to hear about your upbringing.
Sure.
That's kind of like led to why you're so passionate about helping people find love.
I think probably I was like a fake introvert. I
Big
don't,
introvert.
yeah,
Okay.
I think I say that because like as a kid, I didn't have many friends, but I wanted to. And like, I didn't really speak English as a kid. Like, I was born here and everything, but like in the household of, only Chinese speaking people, and I was the firstborn, I didn't know how to talk to people. I grew up in such a strict household. No one had friends. You think like a horse on blinders. It was very difficult to navigate around. I didn't know how to talk to people.
Mm.
But, I've always wanted to. And I look at like these relationships with people and like all these stories that I'm like, how come I don't have the story yet? Recently, I started to just match make some of my friends.
Mm.
And, some of them were skeptical. They're like, my dating life sucked. All men are like this, all women are like this. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's true. So I try to help people who want to help themselves. And a company I was working for didn't really care about that. So I started to just think about like, wow, this like I wonder if part of this love industry is a scam. But
Mm.
then if you look into it, honestly, there's two sides of it. There's like the ethical part of it, which you're not as human as you should be, and then there's like how human are you willing to be in order to find the person you love. And I'm very passionate about that part. So I match made my best friend. And my best friend has not dated since high school. So
Wow.
he's my age. He's been focusing on his career path, his research. He went to UC Berkeley. And he's always been this like well-rounded, nice guy, motivated to just like go through whatever he's been going through all his life. He had a really hard life.
Hmm.
And I've always known that about him. And finding the right person for him has always been like a dream. Of course, you want your best friend to like find love, right? And I pretty much set them up on my birthday.
Nice.
So that made me think about my past moments with my clients, with ones that are like, you know what, I may not have found a one yet, or I have found someone long term, but thanks to your help, I have hope.
Mm.
And I thought, like, you know what? If I can convince like some people to do that and they're willing to work with me on it, great. I can make a difference. I want to make a difference in the dating world. Like I'm a wedding photographer full time. And I hear all the time people say we met online and it took a long time. I was burnt out from it, but then I got back on it. And it's the same story, right? It's
Hmm.
like it's like, yeah, I was feeling a little hopeless and then it happened finally. And it doesn't have to be that story. We can probably change the narrative a little bit, even with dating apps.
So, you brought up two things that I think was interesting. Is the first one is, it's your best guy friend,
Hmm.
and that you're so happy that you're able to help him find somebody that he could really connect with and be in love with. One thing I noticed is that a lot of guys detest the friend zone.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I can understand from both sides, but I want to hear your perspective on the friend zone and why guys seem to have the wrong mindset about that.
People forget that you have to date with intention. How do I know you're interested in me if you're acting like more like a friend and then you're to stop there, right? And I believe there's a balance between that. Like you should be friends first, get to know each other
Hmm.
before you get into a long-term relationship. Instead of jump into it because you want a quality friend.
Yeah. Why do you think that there's this idea that's wrong to be friend zoned? I find that really interesting because if she's, let's say, not interested you in a romantic kind of way,
Hmm.
I mean, friending somebody would also mean that like you're still enjoyable enough to be around.
Yeah.
I find that it's so crazy the amount of detest when it
Mhm.
comes to friend zone. It's kind of like in your situation. If let's
Mhm.
say your best guy friend, you guys obviously became friend, and he's like, "Oh, friend zone, I'm out of here." Right? Like that's what guys do, and it's so
Yeah.
ridiculous because this is kind of something that a lot of guys don't understand. Is that let's just say randomly, scenario sake, you and I were single and then we became friends. And then two scenarios can happen is I can be a jerk and like just switch narratives and just cut out and leave. And then or in the same scenario as your friend, stick around, show that I'm a good person. And in the end, you actually have somebody else that can vouch for you.
Yeah,
And that's the thing about it.
that's amazing because like why not be friends with that person? At least you have some compatibility with that friend, right?
Hmm.
So you never know like what skills you can build or what people you meet within that friend circle. But
Hmm.
then it's like we live in such a black and white world. It's like it's either all or nothing kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's revolved around impatience, self-doubt and all that stuff. Like
Do,
why do we have to beat ourselves up for it, you
yeah.
know?
Do you think it's like a bit of selfishness, insecurity,
Oh
or
yeah.
what do you think that really comes to?
It could be a variety of things. I think a lot of it is self-worth and the fact that maybe at one point when we were kids, we weren't given unconditional love. There's people that are like, "Oh, we're not going to date. You're wasting my time. Why are we going to be friends? Either you're going to be 100% with me or not." And it's like, okay, if you're gonna close off your circle that way, great. But then some girls out there see it as a good thing if that guy has girlfriends too. It's like,
Hmm.
I wonder why. Like, for obviously the first thing they probably ask is like, is he a player? Okay, obviously he's not a player, but he
Hmm.
has a good relationship with a girlfriend because they're platonic. There's something about that girl, trusts something about that guy, and they want to vouch for that guy and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And I believe that's the quality of people. Like if we are around secure people, especially if like the opposite, partner, the opposite gender or whatever is a secure person, you are too. Like you want to get in that pool anyways, right?
Hmm. So I want to talk to you about dating standards.
I think it's good to have standards, right? Like
Hmm.
you don't want to settle for less. You don't want to be too unrealistically picky. Men tend to say something like, "Oh yeah, all women are high maintenance. They want a guy with like who's fit, tall, dark, and handsome." A
Hmm.
list of all these things, and that's not always true.
Hmm.
But double standards for a fact, like, because I have friends that are like, "Okay, I don't want to. I may be a fat person myself, but I don't want to date a fat person." It's like,
Hmm.
okay. You know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
hypocrisy is like there.
Yeah.
They're like, I just can't help it. That's like the number one thing. I can't help this look. I can't help this and I can't help that. Sometimes they find out the hard way. They're like, okay, like I gotta like change up my standards. Let's just say hypothetically, you found your dream person, right? This
Hmm.
person's everything you want in looks, personality, and everything.
Hmm.
But what are the chances of that person liking you, right?
Hmm.
So people also forget like if these people meet all these standards, they most likely have high standards too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up. I have met a number of people who, when I ask them, like, "Oh, what do you want?" and they'll say this and that, and I remember looking, I was like, "Well, unfortunately, most of those you don't even have those qualities.
Yeah.
Most of those." So it's exactly what you're saying. Is that somebody who's aspiring to be of a certain level of standards, and you're not willing to live up to your own set of whatever that you just set onto somebody else,
Hmm.
what's the probability that they're going to want to be with you,
Hmm.
who has now lowered their own personal standards? I personally believe that you should have standards second to the standards that you have to yourself,
Hmm.
because it's good. It's because it's now much easier if you set yourself up with high standards. Like, I'm this kind of person. I show up. I give it my all. Whatever it is, I'm caring. I'm generous. I'm loving. And when you can look at yourself, you're like, oh, I am all these things. Then you really start to believe that I also deserve these things.
Yeah.
That's what I aspire for. But there is such a level. You were right. You nailed it. Hypocrisy that I hear a lot of. And I think that people would be happier if they're more realistic
Mm.
in what they want and the amount of effort they're willing to actually put in
Oh gosh.
to themselves.
Yeah. Effort. I think effort is most of it, to be honest,
Hmm.
because like there's a study about like 80, it's like something 88% or something like that percent of highly compatible partners say that they're highly compatible, but then they break up like a year later.
Hmm.
And why is that, right? It's usually is sense of emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. It's so that's the where the effort part goes in. I don't think most people know what they want. Just to be very, very honest, I didn't know what I wanted.
Hmm.
And my husband didn't know what he wanted. One day he told me I was everything he never knew I wanted in a person. And we
Wow.
both were like willing to work with together. We both went to couples counseling. Like we're both come from such different backgrounds. Like I come from a very strict, negative, very, very negative household. He comes from a very uppity, cheery, positive, hummingbirds in the background, home, like, it's like
Yeah,
a
that's
Disney
like
movie.
it's
Yeah.
so funny. That's like me and my girlfriend.
Yeah. I know, like,
Positive. I'm like, I came from a very negative, like, no, like
yeah.
it's so funny to hear you say that.
Yeah, and then we're not compatible in that
Mhm.
sense, right? But then it's just like, sure, you could say opposites attract, but then the next part is like, how willing are you able to work with that someone's difference and background,
Mm.
right? And just and the other flip side is I don't want to date myself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like sometimes there's these things that I have in myself that I wish I find in other people,
Hmm.
like especially my past relationships. But are you willing to work with someone else's difference, right? What are
Hmm.
green flags? What are beige flags? We have beige flags
Okay.
and red flags and stuff.
Okay, but you brought up two things I actually want to really talk
Sure.
about with you. So the first one is you said emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, I think most men hear that,
Mhm. They
but
get so annoyed with it, though.
but I think that a lot of men aren't even quite sure what that really exactly
No.
means because a lot of times what people often thinks is
Mhm.
an emotional man.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit
The
difference.
word emotional is just a trigger word.
Yeah, yeah. So in your own words, what is emotional intelligence?
Well, if you want to put as simple as possible, is the ability to work yourself inward and how you apply it outwards, especially with the people surrounding you. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay.
Growing up in a really strict household, I gotta admit, like, I don't think at the time I had the fair amount of emotional intelligence because I was a hurt person. I was projecting it onto other
Hmm.
people. I saw the world in a completely different lens,
Hmm.
and I thought everyone was out to get me. It was that bad,
Hmm.
right? And then that's when I realized, like, if I truly want to help people, I gotta help myself, and I know that's easier said than done, but then I realized, like, yeah, I got some issues I gotta work through. If I wanna, like, better my quality of life and friends and my dating life and all that stuff, I have to progress in that
Hmm.
sooner or later. A lot of the people don't understand being emotionally intelligent isn't like, oh, spilling your emotions everywhere or stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, it's just like what's considered emotional stability nowadays, right?
Hmm.
People complain that women are so emotional. We forget, like, you're also an emotional person too. But emotional intelligence, like I said, like, how do you work yourself inward and how to deliver this outward? You don't like emotionally dump on people expecting that they're not going to get hurt by it. You should be
Yeah.
emotionally aware to know these things.
Hmm.
You should be aware that, like, being yourself is not really what it is, right?
Hmm.
You're not going to stay yourself your whole life. No way. We want to be changing, ever growing people.
Yeah.
If you want to find a quality person, you have to grow yourself, and hopefully that person grows with you.
I've had a discussion with a friend that, you should be changing and evolving, and roughly every 10 years, you should almost be a
Hmm.
different person. And if it's done well in a good way,
Hmm.
right? Because that's 10 years of experiences that you have. So you got to look at like, I mean, shoot, even 5 years ago, I was a much different person, I would say, than I am now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hope that my life continues to keep moving forward in that direction. That I see positive changes that's going on. I have this theory, and it actually might tick off
Sure.
a lot of women. What I'm about to
Let's see.
say.
Let's test it.
So
Let's test it.
so it's on average that women like to date older men. Well, what I have found in my life is that a lot of men, once we hit past 30, we develop a lot more of that emotional intelligence. We have
Mm.
practice. I can tell you right now, when I was in my early 20s, I was kind of an idiot. Women develop emotional intelligence much earlier, but there is also what I call logical maturity.
Mm.
So, what I have found in my life from my observation is men develop emotional intelligence later, whereas women develop what I call logical maturity later.
Mm.
Because women are encouraged to navigate the world through their emotions.
Mhm.
Whereas men are basically raised to ignore their emotions, suck it up,
Mhm.
and just push through. So then we get to a place where we're very confused. Like women want us to be attuned with our emotions, but we're just raised to not listen to our emotions.
Mhm.
But like I said, is that as we get older. So I think that the statistic you shared that marriages are done later now in their 30s, I think that's actually a great thing. Because I feel like by 30 is that both sides have kind of caught up to each other.
Hopefully.
Hopefully that's the goal. That's the goal. What I look at like on average. So like I said, is that despite the fact that I was emotionally less mature,
Mm.
I could say that I always still tried to think very logically. even at a young age. But obviously, when you're in a relationship, just trying to constantly think things logically doesn't always work out. So that's just kind of my take on it, is that I believe that women evolve logical maturity later, whereas men evolve emotional intelligence later in life. And that's why we're like the 20s dating scene is just havoc. I really think it's havoc because of that.
Our expectations are so unrealistic.
Yes.
So maybe our emotional or logical maturity is going to be much later because of that. It's hard because what defines logic, right? Like you obviously hear like the terms like men logic, girls logic, stuff like that. When it comes to dating, like people are worried that they meet a stranger online and he could be dangerous. He could be like a serial killer, all we know. So that's a very common thing.
But so right there, it's
Yeah.
like logic, that's emotional aspect. Logic brain would say mathematically, the number of murderers, rapists, and serial killers are astronomically small.
Yeah.
Right? See, that's what I'm saying is that in terms of logic, is that if I'm going out, then what I can do is understand that I may encounter that, but it's an astronomically small number.
Yeah.
That I'll encounter a psychopath. The comments are going to be like, bull, I've encountered all the tons of psychopaths and all. I know I'm already going to get a whole bunch of that, but mathematically, that's what I'm saying. It's like the emotional logic part of the brain. Men go, oh, like they get an apartment. A good example is an apartment. They don't have a lot of money at the beginning. They're like, oh, well, all I need is a TV and a freaking fold out chair. Like that's it. Like some men will just do that because they're getting an apartment. They understand they don't have a lot of money to deal with it, and their part of their brain is like, what do I need? I just need a place to sit and something to watch. Like that's the logic part. But a woman will go in and she'll go, well, I need to make it home. I need to make it pretty. I need to decorate it. And that feeds into the emotional aspects, which sometimes is that you're spending this extra money that you don't have, but it makes you feel better. So that's where I say that that's the logical maturity where men have earlier, but they still lack the emotional intelligence that women have earlier.
That's kind of agree, kind of disagree. Like you said, it doesn't tick me off that you say that, but I could see where it comes from based on like societal norms, right? Yeah, because men are told to simplify things, repress a lot of things, whereas women can express things creatively and stuff like that, right? I could see where that comes from. I think nowadays, like when it comes to millennials and Gen Z, it's a bit. I think like men are allowed to be a little more expressive because nowadays it's new. Like, oh, I want men to be more expressive, and sure that's saying like in tune with their emotions. I guess what they're saying, like, yeah, they want someone who is emotionally intelligent, which is hard to find if a lot of men out there are following that like societal norm of repressing and not being able to process emotions and not seek therapists and all that stuff, right?
Well, I'll share with you from a man's perspective. This is actually, again, it's more the logical
Yeah.
side than the emotional side. There's a lot of men, including myself, oftentimes in my life, feels like if I express my emotions, people will perceive me as weak. If I share my concerns and my worries, all these things, is that people won't feel confident in me to be leader or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what a lot of guys feel like. Like they want to, but they feel like once they do, they're gonna get scrutinized heavily for it.
That's funny you mentioned that because, and I tell my guy friends this. I was like, I think vulnerability is sexy, and I say like it's great to be vulnerable, but then you seize life after that. You know what I mean? You'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna admit I am sick. I don't think I'm up for it. And I'm not a wuss if I can't go do anything today. Because some guys would be, they'll just push through, just keep going.
That's 100% me. I'm like, that's my personality.
But then if the result is the same anyway, you're still getting to that destination, reaching that goal. Wouldn't it be easier to just, heal up and then get to that destination anyway?
Yeah.
Like what you have all the time in the world, right? So it's like I think when you are vulnerable, you're being so honest with yourself. But then after that, you just start like saying, yeah, but then I will seize that goal and I promise I will after I am at my 100% because I don't want to overexhaust myself, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what women truly want is someone who is confident in their emotion, not like, oh yeah, I am this macho masculine person. I don't think it's that. I think it's more like, you know what, I'm upset. This is not working out for me, but you know what? I will seize that right when I feel better because I have self-care and stuff like that, right? And the self-care is not laziness, but some men might see it that way, right? Some
Mhm.
men might see like, oh, I'm just weak if I don't push through. I'm like, you're gonna be even weaker, more injured, or whatever
Yeah.
if you actually risk yourself. You know what I mean?
I've actually trained a lot of people, and I've worked for a fitness company as well. And one of the things I share is recovery and rest
Hmm.
is actually really, really, really important, which most people neglect, and that's why their progress is really slow. They
Hmm.
just don't give themselves time to recover, and I'm guilty. I
Hmm.
would just keep pushing until I break something, and I have this huge, terrible pendulum that I used to do is I'd get good gains at the gym and then just push too hard and injure myself.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to climb back up and then do it again. And I did it until finally I was just like, okay, I need to stop doing this. I just
Hmm.
keep setting myself further back because I'm not allowing myself time to heal and recover.
If they're worried about what people think about, like, oh, she thinks I'm weak if I say that, it's like, no, like that person's not for you then.
Mm,
You know what I mean? That person's not for you. That person, a quality person would just say, please still take care of you. I respect that you need to be 100% and you're not insecure about yourself.
mm,
You are truly more secure if you have self-care, and then you'll do it. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it's I think that's fine, you
Mm,
know? But if women be like, "No, he could make it through anything." I think that's not the kind of person you want to be with anyway, because
mm.
that's like that person's not really looking out for you, you know?
I got you.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point because that's something that I struggle with. I grew up in a very much environment. You had to be a macho man,
Yeah.
like a walk it off kind of mentality all the time.
Mhm.
I wrestled and then I did jujitsu, a lot of different martial arts.
Mhm.
I played a lot of sports. So and in that environment, you're admired for that, and I think
Mhm.
that is different as well. So negatively playing into the relationship because in one area you're admired, you might not be admired so much
Mhm.
in another area. So going on the dating crisis of what's actually happening, I took the liberty of looking up some statistics, which all the viewers will be able to find in the description. But based on the American Addiction Center, a lot of people know about alcohol and drugs. So alcohol is 10.2%, drugs are 9.7%. What a lot of people don't realize is video games addiction has went up to about 10%,
Mhm.
and porn addiction is 11%. So the interesting thing is that with the modern age, two addictions have risen, and they're all in the digital world.
Yeah.
And they're actually numerically higher than alcohol and drugs now. An interesting side note on a little more statistics, and I really want to be able to discuss this with you, that in person social meetings have dropped based upon Boston's NPR. So adults spend 30% less time in real life with each other
Mhm.
as they did in the previous generations, and teens nearly 50% less.
Oh my
That
goodness.
is massive.
Yeah.
And so one other thing that's really interesting is at the World Finance Report shows that Gen Z drinks 20% less than millennials.
Oh.
Now, when I look at that, the first thing you kind of think of is like, oh, they drink less, they're healthier.
Mhm.
I don't think that that's really the case because based upon the other numbers is that everybody's dropping in their time spent together. Some people may look at alcohol as drunkenness, but honestly, I think there's a lot of togetherness in drinking. Going out with the friends, having a few drinks here and there. There's a lot of that that's involved in real life. And no, you don't have to get slammed or smashed each and every time. But my girlfriend and I will go to speakeasies with some friends. We'll have a cocktail, but we just spend it socializing. Honestly, in my opinion, looking at that, I think it's less about health, and it's actually more about the fact that they're spending way less time with each other. Based upon kind of what I shared with you, what are your thoughts on all that?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a little shocked about the the Gen Z social time. The aspects of socializing, like you think can play a big role in a dating world, right? Like you think if you just socialize in person, like maybe it will increase their chance of dating. Is that where you're also trying to get at with the stats, or?
Well, no, I'm just curious on what your opinion. What was your first impression about it? Because
Yeah.
what you're saying is true. Is that your success rate of dating will go down if you're not actually meeting people
Mhm.
as well. That's a huge contributor of dating.
Most preferable strategy in meeting and finding compatible people is to just go out there and just see what's there, right? The idea of committing to a relationship is, I believe, is getting worse every year. Like I remember reading a stat saying that like it's much slower to commit nowadays. Like this, like the average commitment year before an engagement is now like 4.9
Really?
years.
Wow.
Yeah. The average age you get married is like now 30, 31-ish.
Okay.
So it's like, what are their goals nowadays? We come from a generation where long-term dating is like more prominent, but then
Mhm.
like people in the future, what is it nowadays? Like short-term dating, very, very casual hookups. Like nowadays, I hear situationships, right? Like all
Yeah.
the time from millennials and Gen Z. I hear it more from my Gen Z friends, to be honest.
Yeah. Situation. I feel like that's a Jersey Shore thing right
I
there.
know it's like a movie.
Situationship.
Yeah.
Um, no, well, see, like that's interesting because I think that we could say that there's a little bit of liberation in
Mhm,
terms of how people date. Women have a lot more freedom now as well
mhm,
in terms of the dating pool and the market. So that changes things a lot. Expectations are a little bit different now. I look at video games addiction and porn.
mhm,
Interestingly enough, when I see that majority of that is actually male.
mhm.
Why do you think that is?
What if it's not just video gaming? What if it's just technology?
Mm,
So what if let's just say, let's include video gaming, mobile gaming, and social media.
mhm.
How many people, especially when it comes to women, are into social media?
Yeah,
How that could be like their own kind of video game, but like a subtle
true,
version of it,
sure.
right? Just sounds like the issue is we're just so addicted to technology, you know?
Mm,
Maybe it's because of the attention span. What if because of that, that causes people to think, I could find someone better. I could find someone better. Or they just be like, no, maybe I won't find someone better. And they feel like that fatigue, right?
mm.
Dating fatigue is such a real thing. And it's like, how do we navigate around that? Like, how do we snap out of that, you know?
You're right. I think that when you start treating dating like it's a Shopify event,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's really good for the individual. Yeah, it's this whole like FOMO. It's just constantly like, oh, if there's more, if there's better,
Mhm.
and I think the one of the best advice is instead of looking for someone to date, strive to become somebody worth dating
Mhm.
or worth being in a relationship with.
Mhm.
And I think that more people just instead of shopping outwards really looked inwards and said, okay, how can I be a better person?
Mhm.
How can I contribute to the world and live a healthier, better way? I think that naturally those people tend to become more interesting and overall just more likable to be around. Okay, so we just talked about these statistics that I shared with you earlier. How do you think that affects the in person approaches in dating?
How it affects dating, like how do you connect with it's pausing you from taking you away from connecting with other people,
Mhm,
building skill with people. It's easier, right, to just go with like watching someone who's supposedly giving you the pleasure you need, that's meeting your needs,
mhm,
right? Than to put in effort to go out there and date, right?
mm,
Because that somehow like the more you're into that into porn, the more like you're having a hard time connecting with other people.
mhm,
Like logically that makes sense. Like whenever you have an addiction to anything, right? Like even video games or whatever addiction, and you're just not connecting with people, of course you're going to lower your chances of dating. Now, just to be very honest, I'm not 100% against porn.
mhm.
um I believe in moderation, it's just a fantasy.
Porn represents a very primal
Hmm.
urge in all of us, and I think that I think it would be a hard toll to convince everybody just to quit entirely.
Hmm.
But I definitely believe that people really need to learn to regulate it
Hmm.
and to make sure that that's not actually affecting their life
Hmm.
in a way. It's like any addiction that you have. Now, I do believe that probably it's best to just probably get off of it. But
Hmm.
I, like I said, is that porn is such an interesting thing that it's been successful throughout ever since print came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, and it just represents the primal part that all of us is that we all have these sexual wants and needs and these urges, and that's what porn represents. But definitely, when people are taking it down the wrong path, or they get highly addicted to it, or they're using it just like video games
Hmm.
as a scapegoat to the reality so that they don't actually have to go out there and pursue women, or maybe they're frustrated with their success rate
Hmm.
in the dating that they're like, well, I'm tired of getting rejected. I'm tired of this, but you know what? The screen never rejects me.
Yeah, that's exactly it too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Found that a lot of people have unmet needs in relationships, which is causes them to separate. But
Mhm.
oftentimes, I found that most of the unmet needs were never communicated properly. How do you feel about dating apps?
Mm.
And do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? I just kind of want to get your honest opinion on the dating apps.
Well, there's obviously pros and cons, right? There are
Mhm.
obviously pros and cons. As a wedding photographer, most of my clients that I've had said they met online.
Mhm.
So, but like I said, it's a typical story where it's just like, we've been on apps for a long time. I got burnt out of it. I got off of it. But then I was like, I'm trying again, blah, blah, blah. I meet so many of these people. And I finally found that person.
Mhm.
There's a list of things that can go wrong, and there's a list of things that can go right. So we can start with bad and then end with the good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I just wanted to share because
Yeah.
I found my girlfriend online,
Yeah.
so obviously it does work, but
Mhm.
I can also see the damages that it can do as well
Yeah.
to people's.
The only time I've used a dating app was because I tried to make my own dating app. I
Okay.
tried to make my own dating app, and it was just me and two other people. And even though I was already like taken, I was like, okay, what is it like to be a girl on a dating app?
Hmm.
And oh my gosh, it is so overwhelming. I will go on OkCupid and then fill out a profile, and oh my gosh, like I got over. I remember like seeing like the moment it will reach 99 plus, it will start with a zero. 99 plus, start with a zero. So like I was like, oh my gosh, I can't keep track of all of this. What I've noticed is some of these people, I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw you online and you were last I saw you were taken kind of thing. Some of
Hmm.
them are married people or taken people on dating apps. Nowadays just Facebook groups like of women looking out for other women in case like the guy that they're seeing is either taken or is there something off about that guy, red
Hmm.
flags or something like that. And then there's a really big one that just came out. Like
Hmm.
it's called Are We Dating the Same Guy? And it's like followed by like a city name.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
there's one like Are We Dating the Same Guy, San Diego? And it's just like a bunch of women like vouching for each other, take screenshots like, hey, does anyone know this guy? Hey, this guy's taken, this guy's my
Hmm.
husband, and stuff like that.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
I actually totally get the validity of this, but as
Yeah.
somebody who studies a lot of algorithms,
Yeah.
is my concern about it is you get this one really angry gal
Hmm.
who went on a date and she got rejected and she can't handle that,
Hmm.
so she just goes and just tries to tear his reputation, his image. Like
That does happen.
I would imagine that would happen. Like,
That happened to some of my friends. That does happen. So
yeah.
do you know people that happened to?
No, no,
No?
that was just my first thought. Would
Okay.
be like, I actually I get most things are started off with good intentions. I
Yeah.
feel like, and then there's a few that just like, oh, I'm going to abuse this.
Oh my goodness. That actually happened to a few of my friends.
Okay.
And one of them like actually is wrongfully incarcerated because of that. So it can go that it could go pretty far.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could go pretty far. Of course, so many things on the internet are fake,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And people aren't aware that the algorithm shows you what you want to see,
Yep.
right? So disadvantage of what I see in this group is of course you're focusing on the bad people, right?
Yeah.
You're people that you don't want. They're like,
Mm.
oh boy, this group makes me think that dating is completely hopeless. And it's just like, but what about the good men that are
Yeah.
out there?
Well, yeah. A lot. I think what people don't understand is when they look at the social media, they see one instance.
Mhm.
And in real life, you would go around and you'd see an instance of like, oh, that. But the problem is you're fed thousands of instances
Yeah.
all at once. And then now it just feels like it's happening everywhere.
Mhm.
That they need to be careful because this really involves politics. This involves everything
Mhm.
that you have because your brain is trying to find patterns.
Mhm.
And so it thinks it found a pattern, but it's not a pattern. It's just the algorithm feeding you this thing
Mhm.
over and over and over again. But your brain goes, "There's a pattern of this." I did a test. Direwolf. Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna stick around on this just direwolf, and I just left my Facebook just on this direwolf.
Mhm.
And sure enough, I just kept seeing direwolves for like the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Like every fifth post was like third or fourth or whatever. Maybe it was like direwolf. I was like, I've never once encountered like this has never been a thing that I've ever looked at, and suddenly it feels like dire wolves are everywhere. So that's an example that I like to use is that you just stop on it for a moment and then you just fed it a lot. So that's my concern about something like that. I think it comes from a great place because let's like you know, if I had a friend and then she's going out or he's going out with somebody and that person I know is terrible, I would, of course,
Mhm.
somebody who cares would want to warn them.
Pros and cons, right?
Mhm.
Pros and cons. I think a lot of people forget that, not like there's it's hard to see credibility in social media sometimes.
What's your advice for women then?
You gotta be careful of the algorithm. The algorithm is gonna show you all sorts of things. Like the typical viewer would be like, okay, I'm only gonna see a lot of these posts. I'm gonna see a lot of reels of people cheating.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I remember I was on that group, on that Facebook group, and then out of nowhere I started was shown like videos of people cheating and stuff like
Mhm.
that, or they got caught cheating and stuff like that. And of course, like a typical person would be like questioning, maybe my husband's cheating or my partner's cheating
Mhm.
and stuff like that, right? It's like you gotta like learn to catch yourself, be like, that's the algorithm. Wait, snap out of it. That's the algorithm. Not all guys are like this, you
Mhm.
know. I'm sure you know some pretty good guy friends out there.
Yeah.
If you get yourself in the bigger dating pool, just go out there and maybe like professionally network, you know. You have something you're interested in, just do that thing you're interested in. There's meetups. There's a reason why we have social media and like and the internet is so we can find these things, right? Change your audience to see these people, right? Sometimes we get too sucked in into
Mhm.
like the drama of social media of what we don't want to see, but we want to see at the same time kind of thing.
Mhm. Well, I think that's interesting because I find it fascinating how many people love drama.
Yeah.
And I personally don't. I'm very busy. I'm always working on a bunch of projects and stuff like that. And so in my mind, I don't have time for this drama.
Yeah.
And it's always fascinates me how much people just love that. So I still like randomly a little bit sidetracked
Hmm.
is I remember Jersey Shore getting introduced to it in college, and my roommates were like, "Oh, you got to watch this show. It's so great." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, sure." I sat down, I watched it for 10 minutes, and I got up. I was like, "This is trash. Like,
Yeah.
these are terrible people.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting your time watching this?" And I just, left and found something more entertaining to do. It's still something I don't understand. I get that people like that. I have talked to some friends. It's like they
Yeah.
just find it funny. They
Yeah.
find it interesting. Personally find it toxic, but to each their own, I suppose. On that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I know that reality TV shows aren't accurate. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I was even part of a reality TV show,
Hmm.
and and in the show plays these characters as these amazing people. But I was like, I know the real story, and because of that, I was just like, I just know reality TV is not always true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love.
I've worked on some as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love watching my husband react to the reality TV shows because he gets sucked in. Just his face is just priceless. You
Yeah.
know?
So overall, what would you say? Dating apps, good or bad?
I don't think should be your only thing.
Mm.
You know, I don't think that should be your only thing. I think you
Okay,
should
so don't just rely on that. Okay.
it's so easy to swipe on someone, right?
Yeah.
If my husband, no offense to him, I love him and stuff like that. If he made a dating profile on an app, I would swipe no on him.
No.
I would definitely swipe
Oh,
no.
no.
I would swipe no. No way. I'm just like 2 kids, military. Nope.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean. But what I learned is that like I started to look into what I really wanted, and
Mhm.
I rather date like a mature um, career driven dad
Yeah.
than like an immature single man child.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
the individual person's character that really shines through.
Yeah.
That can make up for a lot of anything else that's not ideally preferenced,
Mhm.
shall we say. It's kind of funny because guys go off about looks all the time, and I constantly tell them, I was like, do you know how many women I've talked to and I've asked them what's their like Prince Charming ideal, and they'll name that, and I'll look over at their partner. I'm like, he doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah, most of the
Right?
world don't look
Exactly.
like that.
It doesn't exist. Is that majority of women fall in love with the man, the person,
Yeah.
right? And then everything else is kind of a bonus. Do you feel like society is constantly telling men to accept women, but women don't have to accept men? Or do you feel like that's just a male narrative that like guys are being fed?
Oh gosh, there's so many narratives that are fed out there. That could be one of them. It's easier for us to generalize. Remember that not everyone's like that. Not everyone's like that. And it's hard for us to believe that because like we tend to choose the how we feel based on our experience, right?
Yeah.
Society telling women to to not to accept men for who they are,
Hmm.
but men to not accept women for who they are. Was it?
No, no, no. It says that it's framing the fact that the narration goes is that woman accept me for who I am, the good and the bad and all that stuff. But
Okay.
on the opposite end is that men feel like women don't accept them for the same level. And I hear this from a lot of guys. And in a way, I felt this way as well in my earlier years is that, like I said, is that I am expected to be all these things and do all these things and be better.
Hmm.
And then in return, I just have to accept her. And I think society has gotten to a point, and again, it could be just whatever I'm fed from whatever media platforms that I'm being sent at. But it feels like we're promoting a generation where women just say, I'm the prize,
Mm.
right? And I don't have to do anything.
Okay. So those are definitely stereotypes because, I don't really hear that as much.
Okay.
I have, if the root of it is entitlement, then that sucks. Like being entitled is not going to help you.
Mhm.
I think this is where we talk about realistic standards, right?
Yeah.
It's realistic that, let's say, particularly if a woman is experiencing menopause or a really hard time with her period, we have to take that in consideration. I think that's something like we should think about. Like if a woman experiences postpartum depression after pregnancy, yes, like definitely that's something like we should take a consideration of and give them. You both chose to have a baby together, or she chose to have a baby. Like we have to be accommodating
Mhm.
to given that circumstance. But to overall say like we have to accept them completely for who they are, I think ironically that's also like settling for can be settling for less if
Mhm.
if it's unrealistic. There's a reason why stereotypes and narratives are there because they do commonly occur.
Mhm.
On the men's side, an average woman would probably say like I don't want men to be accepted for who they are because a lot of them suppress their emotions, which is not great. And that's a very common thing, right? Like men think that they're better than everyone, men thinks they're all players and stuff like that. Like there's all these narratives that
Yeah.
men are players, right?
Negative
Which
stereotypes. Yeah.
I don't believe, right? I believe that the players, that when people say men are players, it's because we sat here, and then who are the ones that come up to us?
Hmm.
Men slash players, right? And
Hmm.
then the rest of the men, I believe they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's I see it in dating apps that have like so many guy friends that are like, I feel like I'm just some creepy person to them. I'm invisible, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, and I hear it very often. So it's like to what extent are we able to just like tackle the situation case by case a little
Hmm.
deeper? I think that obviously the more we generalize, it's dangerous for us. It's
Yes.
closing off, right?
Yeah.
But the more we like stick to a very specific narrative, we're also doing the same exact thing. Most of my past relationships, I was with people who like or were avoidant. They didn't
Hmm.
like talking about their feelings. They cope with like what? Like playing video games. They cope with like they have unhealthy coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And then for me, of course, I would think all men are like this, right?
Hmm.
But then I learned why did I attract these people? I wonder why. Because that I have to have a red flag somewhere, right?
Hmm.
And my red flag was that I was a people pleaser, and I was attracting those that like to take advantage of my kindness.
Hmm.
And after I just realized that, I was like, where does that come from? It comes from the fact that I had to people please my family all the time. My parents were really domineering,
Hmm.
avoidant people,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize like how big a role my family played in how I attracted people and
Hmm.
how I dated. So after like my last relationship before my husband, like I was legit like, that's it. I'm done dating. Like every guy is like this and stuff like that. So I had like this narrative that all men are like this.
Hmm.
But then after going to therapy and changing the way I saw the world and like, where these stereotypes come from and stuff like that, I learned for me specifically, I want to find a guy I wanted to find a guy who has a great and healthy relationship with people in general, right? With
Hmm.
people and their family. I noticed every single one of my exes hated having they had a toxic relationship with their parents.
I think everybody has a certain level of toxicity with
Yeah.
their family. It's just how much of it do they carry into their adulthood?
Yeah. And they shaped a big part of us. So,
Hmm.
of course, that like, we're going to remember that. And that definitely has a role in us, right? It
Hmm.
depends on how we overcome it. So, like, I could see where the stereotypes come in, like, especially on a cultural level,
Hmm.
like intergenerational trauma, like, especially where my family comes from, they believe like men are always going to be the amazing, or they have to be the cooks, they have to, all that stuff.
Wow. That's a great explanation as to why that people would feel that way. And I think that going all the way back to what you're saying is that when we overgeneralize
Hmm.
about people, I think that that is damaging. We're limiting our ability to address the individual cases
Hmm.
that are in front of us. And entitled people suck. That's just the best way to describe.
Yeah.
Entitled people are entitled people regardless. I've dated entitled people, and I think
Same.
one thing I wanted to share is that you shared you were a people pleaser, and I have I recognize at a certain point that I had a hero complex. It's weird. Part of my brain thought it was like justifiable. Like, since you'd never had this good experience, I want to be this good experience for you. Like, I want to be that guy that's like breaks the norm of the toxic bullshit that you've had to endure your whole life. I want to be that emotional, mature guy who can calmly handle things instead of flipping his lid and breaking things and just not knowing how to control his emotions. But no matter how much I wanted that for somebody,
Hmm.
it's kind of like helping somebody in the dating life is that you want all the happiness for them and for them to do the right things, but they are still their own person and you cannot control them and where they are in their life. So, like kind of like what you said with your scenario, I empathize a lot because I finally went. I have to stop being trying to be the hero all the time.
Hmm.
And now I move a lot. I teach a lot of men now is that there's no hero coming for you. You have to be the hero, but it's the hero in your own life.
Hmm.
That's where I'm at right now. I never look for a hero. I'm always like, how can I be the hero for myself in the situation that I'm in?
I would imagine that being a hero complex, when you're like, you know what, I gotta be a hero of myself. Sorry, I can't help you. Have you ever had people like gaslight you and just say you're supposed to help me no matter
Oh
what?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I dated a girl who did that all the time to me.
Yeah.
I think one of the most toxic relationships I dated was that it was all about her wants, her feelings, her needs,
Hmm.
but then mine was just totally like, what do you mean your feelings? What do you mean your wants?
Hmm.
She would actually get offended that I would express my emotional wants and needs. And that's a pretty toxic place to be in.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I got to a point where I never experienced it in my life. Is I had emotional bankruptcy.
Mm.
Is where you put so much in the other person, but then you realize that no matter what you do, the other person will never be happy, no matter what.
Hmm.
And I'd never experienced that before in my life, where just all of it just disappeared,
Yeah.
and I just walked away.
Well, I'm glad that you did, you
Yeah.
know?
Now I know from that experience that each person has an emotional bank. You have an emotional bank, I have an emotional bank.
Hmm.
And what happens is if I keep withdrawing from yours, eventually you're going to go bankrupt.
Hmm.
So there in life, you need to learn how to deposit into other people's emotional bank.
Hmm.
But every once in a while, you can withdraw from it. But I believe if you want to live a good life, you should be depositing more than withdrawing.
Hmm. That's a really, it's funny. I remember using the term emotional bank before,
Hmm.
and I sometimes have joked around saying some people's emotional banks don't communicate well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, some people actually have very small banks. I've learned some people have very small emotional
Yeah,
banks. Some people have huge and wealthy.
yeah.
They have so much wealth, and that's like the incredibly patient people, the one that like. And it's interesting is that I think that you could learn to grow it a little bit, but I think there is a part of biologically about you that some people just have such an abundance in their emotional bank,
Mhm.
whereas some people admit just unfortunately this they can only give so much before they feel drained. What are your thoughts if somebody goes on a first date, but it's not amazing, it's not great,
Mhm.
but it also wasn't terrible,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't bad. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it really depends. So like it could be like let's say you were really tired that day and but let's say like you didn't show much intentionality, right?
Mm,
If you feel that way, you can admit that. You can just say like, "You know what? I don't think I felt like I gave it my best that day,
mhm,
and I believe you deserve my best.
mhm,
So, would you be open to a second date? And this time we would do like an activity or something." To my clients, I've always recommended like a fun activity to do. like something that has challenges and stuff like that, you know?
Mhm.
And some clients, they would prefer like a coffee date. Sure. Personally, I'm not a coffee date person.
Mm.
I'm kind of like, let's go on a roller coaster and let's see, you know, like a literal roller coaster. Let's just something fun. Let's go, you know. I wouldn't do hiking because like I think that has to be a public place.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
to be
I,
safe, right?
I think that's a great advice for a lot of guys because you guys, gentlemen, you got to understand if you're hiking, that means you're going to take a woman alone in some
Yeah.
woods or something, and they are going to have a lot of
Yeah.
concerns with that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So like in case they're into it, then that's a different
Hmm.
scenario, sure. But like I think it's like something I think it depends, right? Like nowadays what I've been hearing is when women are asked to go on a coffee date, they think it's a low effort date.
Hmm.
And they think it's a low effort date because it's like it's not it shows that you're not willing to invest a lot in the future.
That's really interesting because you think of it this one way where a guy doesn't put effort. I'm thinking it this other way where you put tremendous amounts of effort, but then the other person is just terrible, and you're just sitting there like,
See, I don't mind coffee dates. I think there's nothing wrong with them because
mm-hmm.
there's pros and cons to like different kind of dates. Like, right?
Hmm.
Like, what if you don't like the person? You can just up and go, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, which is fine. But nowadays, I hear more people that are like, "So, how much effort are you willing to put into me?" kind of thing. And there is some type of entitlement thing in there,
Hmm.
but then there's also like, you know, I want first good impression.
Yeah. I think effort really shows.
Yeah.
I think you're right there. That you've you've hit that on the head because I think people really do pay attention, notice effort. One of the things that my girlfriend shares with me, she goes, she really likes that I put effort into dressing well.
Hmm.
She really appreciates that. And
Yeah.
it's just like those little things.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't really think that about that. It's just like, why do I have to dress well? It's just like, it just shows effort. Like, what can you do as someone that hasn't met you yet to show effort the first
Mhm.
day? And I think that's just the root of it because, like, that's for me, I'm just like, I wanted, if I were single again, I would be like, I want to do something fun and adventurous. And I want, because I believe I work well with someone who is adventurous and fun and spontaneous. So you're ready for that. I think you're ready for anything else about me, right?
Mm.
So it's a case by case scenario kind of thing. But like with my clients, I always recommend something like you know if you want to go bowling or mini golfing or like a I don't know like a concert or like an improv show or something really funny that brings like high energy and excitement. Then you will see the best of that person because nowadays I gotta admit, I think people want to be with a partner. I think that's how you connect the most with people is to see the best side of themselves, the fun side, right?
Mhm.
But if it comes to dinners and coffee dates, sure. If you prefer smaller steps, cool, good for you.
Mhm.
But you know, getting to know someone and you're eating in front of them, like you know, that's a little awkward for me. I don't mind eating afterwards, you know,
Mhm.
but like
So the whole dinner and a movie's kind of fallen by the wayside,
yeah,
right? It's
I think because you want to show you for you, right?
okay.
The food is not you. The movie is not you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Well, you're
But
right. The movie isn't conducive to anything because you're just going to sit there and just both silently stare at the screen.
I had a client once that like wanted he was a simple person and he said he's not a fan of fancy dates and not stuff like that. And I was like, okay, what do you want to propose? And he's like, I want to go to a Chili's. And I'm like, oh boy. So luckily the girl agreed on a Chili's, but then he doesn't put effort in. He's like, he's too shy still. He doesn't want to say anything. He was also 2 hours late. Oh my gosh. Like I get feedback and it's like, and I try to give him the feedback. And I said, you know, maybe for first dates, since you're paying money for this, why don't you do something fun? And he said, no, the issue is not because of how the date went. It's because that person wasn't ideal for me and didn't, and that person was supposed to bring that out of me. And it's like, but it's not that person's responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to have the most guaranteed fun, shouldn't you take initiative and showing fun on your side first anyways?
Mhm.
Like, what's wrong with that? Like, you can't just sit there and expect the other person
I'm
to be
really glad
fun.
you brought that up. I've shared this with so many men. You know, we always talk about high value. They always
Mhm.
say high value men. I believe there's also high value women. You can't expect to be with a high value woman by just breathing.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that you think that anything can happen is a reflection of entitlement, where
Mhm.
you just literally have to exist and that they'll just come groveling towards you or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Maybe if you're the Giga Chad, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like the less than 1%er who just
Mhm.
exist in that manner, but the majority of the people, you got to put in effort. And right away, like just what you're saying is that he showed up late, you know, he didn't put in effort, says, I'm tardy, I don't respect your time.
Mhm.
It's not about what it's about what he's conveying
Yeah.
is a message. And I think right there, I'd be so disrespected that somebody showed up 2 hours late. I would never waited.
Yeah, but
Just,
this girl was so patient, but
oh
in
my
the end,
god.
she was like, "Okay, well, yeah."
Oh yeah, like okay. I'm saying that's a saintly level of
I
patience.
know,
Because
right?
for 2 hours, I would no.
I know.
I think that is crazy. That's a huge red flag right
Yeah.
there in terms of just not wanting to respect someone's time and not wanting to put in. Like
Mhm.
my thought is that what do you expect? And I think as I say that, I think this is where people sabotage themselves. I think they expect it to not fail. I mean to not succeed.
Mhm.
I think they get to a point where people feel so defeated that they just expect it to not succeed. And now therefore it was if it wasn't for that, it would have been anything else.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is also because you want to show that you're considerate of the other person, and that's
Mhm.
how people connect, right? Is if you think about them.
Young people don't seem to be, or they really don't know how to ask girls out in public.
Oh boy.
That's something that I have noticed. You know, my friends and I, we grew up at a time where you had to, you know, before the all the dating apps, before everything else. So my thing is that first of all, why is this
Mhm.
happening? And then second of all, do you have any tips or advice for young men on how they could approach, you know, a girl in public and let's say ask for a date?
First of all, like if you go to a place to ask a girl out, that's harder than just doing like let's say a meetup or like a mixer or some type of like hobby that involves other people because like one you and that person if you join these things you and that person already have something in common so that's a
Mm,
good start, right?
okay.
Like I had a friend, I told him to join a mixer and he found someone that had a same professional goals as him and stuff like that,
Hmm.
you know. I had another friend who joined like a um, it, it's like some type of medical meetup or something like that. And turns out they both had like similar goals and helping people, and then they clicked off that. Like you don't go there like with intentionality to date, but if you just so happen to have something in common, then that could be a good start. You know,
Hmm.
I always think it's good to be. I like the idea of like being friends first, like embrace the idea of like of like connecting with someone, right?
Okay.
Because asking a girl out in public nowadays, can we really do that? Like, do you see people doing that often anymore? At least, I mean, I
No,
personally don't.
no, not really. I don't
Yeah,
really see it.
I think nowadays people might think that's a little creepy
Mm.
compared to decades ago.
I think it also depends
Yeah,
on where you're from because I think more rural areas, there's a lot more trust factor.
yeah,
When you live in the city, there's like no trust factor.
hmm,
One of the psychological things that I've learned, and it was actually told to me before I ever came out to LA from a mentor of mine. His name was Mr. L. He uh, he shared that in the big city, there's so many people that everybody just tries to push outwards to create space.
hmm,
But in the countryside, where there's so few people, actually everybody tries to close the space.
hmm,
So this shows that we all need a certain level of companionship, but when it's overloaded, we have a natural response to push away. There's too many. And so I think that was I didn't quite understand it until I went to LA.
hmm,
And then I got there, I was like, oh man, everybody's just trying. It was so hard to make friends.
hmm,
It was crazy to think that a city with millions upon millions, like I think grand total, all the circular area, not I mean, they say LA, but there's a whole bunch of other smaller connecting. This city that doesn't really divide itself. It's
hmm.
like 14 million or something like that. That many people, and to for myself, who's extroverted, who likes to go out and meet people, I've made a handful of friends in like
Yeah.
10 years that I was out there, and I think that that's just kind of crazy. But it just proves the point that when you're living in cluster, everybody likes to push away. So
Okay.
I wonder if that has a part to play into that. There's a trust
Probably.
factor.
I guess there is a trust factor. There's also like a typical environment with like people drinking and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like how are you impaired enough to ask someone out and
Yeah.
let feel loose and stuff like that? I know if I really had to give an advice on if like let's say you're public and you had to give someone you want to ask someone, talk to someone with the intentionality of connecting with them, getting to know them, be like, what are you here for? Like, what do you do for you? I'm kind of bored and just, want to meet a new
Mm,
friend, just get to know someone,
gotcha.
take a chance at it and just be like, and that's kind of like, don't think of it as like, oh yeah, I'm dating this person. I'm like getting to know someone and
Mm.
building a people skill.
I think you really nailed it with the word intentionality.
Oh yeah, like, cause how else are you gonna show people you're interested? Like, of course, you want to show it. Like, if I talk about things you enjoy,
Hmm.
right? It looks like I'm connecting with you.
Hmm.
But then the other way around, I don't know if you're connecting with me because you're not showing intentionality back with me, right?
Gotcha.
Kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So I think a lot of people need to like show more of that. Show that, and it doesn't. That's why I don't really like coffee dates sometimes because like coffee dates like kind of limits you in activities. But I mean, if you're like that, you prefer lower energy. Good for you. Just don't get upset if you didn't see much. You know what I mean?
So we're developing a comprehensive boot camp for dating.
Okay.
And we're also expanding it to a lot more. It's not just dating; it's to help men network and just become a better version of themselves, so that they can become somebody worth dating,
Mhm.
and they can use it, all over, not necessarily just dating itself. Now, as I say that, what do you believe are some critical things that men need to know in order to stand out in the dating pool?
Let's just go with the easiest thing we have right now, which is the dating apps, right?
Okay.
Um, obviously, they are aware that they are competing against hundreds and thousands of people on the app.
Hmm.
Got to make yourself stand out, like somehow, right? Like people's attention span on dating apps are so short. Like you got to have something eye catching, right?
Hmm.
And forget the concept of like be yourself and stuff like that. You always got to be a better version of yourself. You're ever growing, ever changing person.
Hmm.
I think like networking is so important. Um, I think like when you build the confidence to have the people skills to adapt, you can work with so many people. You're essentially expanding your pool just by like adapting to different people because you never know if the date you are going on that the person's doing something you're not like you're not liking or you're not like adapting to it so easily. Like, don't you think it's important to have that skill to just like go with whatever you want to say,
Hmm.
like how then you show like wow, that person is a good conversationalist. So general, if you better the quality of yourself, your dating pool will change so much, right? It's
Hmm.
like don't like I know it maybe may not be the greatest example. It's like kind of like putting your work, you have artwork and then you are increasing the value of your artwork because that's your self-worth,
Hmm.
right? And then you're attracting the people who are willing to pay you and get you
Hmm.
through that process of like making sure your work is known and stuff
So
like
your
that.
currency there is your self-worth.
Kind of,
Mm,
you
okay.
could see it that way, but at the same time, it's like what builds you, like right, like your personality, your
Hmm.
people skills, your willingness to be active listener, like your willingness to work with someone that's different than you. Everyone has red flags, like
Hmm.
even you have red flags, we
Hmm.
have red flags, right? And how willing you are to work with that red flag, and if you can take it,
Hmm.
and also like I think like it's so important to have like so many not so many friends but like a good friend circle, like even if they're women or not, right?
Hmm.
You mentioned about the idea of friend zoning. Well, it depends, right? It's like, hey, you know what, I appreciate that you being honest with me that dating isn't working out. But would you have any feedback to provide me, or would you interested in just being friends? Maybe like, and if they say no, that's fine, right? But you're bound to find someone who wants to be your friend, you know? And you don't want to be with someone who's also just like, oh yeah, you're only seeing if I'm going to be the person I'm going to get married to. No, why not have that friend? You need to have friends, especially from a girl's perspective, like how to change things around
Hmm.
and all that stuff. Like you gotta at least it shows that you're a little more open minded. And if quality people see that you have a diverse amount of friends,
Hmm.
great, you're changing your dating pool anyway, right? And it
Yeah.
will take time and patience.
Think that diversifying yourself, putting yourself out there, it's the same thing in business.
Hmm.
You know, you have to network, you got to meet people. You
Hmm.
can't do, it's hard to do this life alone in anything. My deepest desires is to be able to provide tools for men so that they can do these things. They can network better. They can,
Hmm.
put their best foot forward and become somebody that they don't want to escape from. Because to me, that is what I believe ultimate success is to finally become somebody you never want to escape from. So, Vivian, I wanted to say thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. And to close things off, I did have one question for
Sure.
you. What's the greatest piece of advice that you've received that has really positively affected your life?
What are some things that you know you need to attack that you feel like you don't like about yourself? You know, you're
Mm,
insecure about. And if you're insecure about it, of course we get so sucked into our insecurities so easily that we gotta at least tackle it. Always constantly ask for advice. Like, I wonder what I did wrong, stuff like that. And everyone's gonna have different opinions, right? It's always
mhm,
good to consider different opinions, but at least that's something, right? Like, you don't want the only person checking the reality of you to just be you. You need like someone else to like bounce and be the catalyst to be like, let's stir it up. What is your opinion about that? I like to hear. It may pinch a little bit, it might hurt a little bit, but I think I do need to hear that.
mm.
So that's
Yeah,
that's just my take. You know?
it's excellent. I think it never hurts to level up.